If you're a totally underground, you know, kind of head-nodding, chin-stroking techno fan, this might sound like Kylie Minogue to you.
Sure.
But if you're a Kylie Minogue fan, this sounds like underground, chin-stroking techno. So...
Ladies and gentlemen, a true Australian legend joins us tonight. He was listed in the first ever DJ Mag Top 100 DJs. His iconic mixes for Ministry of Sound and One Love have sold over 1 million CDs, inspiring an entire generation, myself included. At the time of shooting, he streamed his wildly popular isolation sessions live from his house for 37 consecutive weeks. Please welcome the main course, Mr. John Course.
Doof, doof, doof in the air tonight. House music from home never felt so right. Now your neighbors awake in the 3058. It's Coburg up late.
I'm safe.
Yeah, you're safe. You're in. COVID's safe.
It's quite an intro there, you know, like I'll save that for my PR company. And
you can be doing that in one of your weekly isolation sessions.
if I'm feeling down on, you know, my vibe, I can just play your intro and go, yes.
There's a lot of people feeling good on your vibe. You've done it for 37 weeks in a row now.
Yes. It started because we were going to have the Reminisce party.
Is that why?
Yeah, that was the first one. So we were like 5 days out from the Reminisce event, which was going to be at the Music Bowl, kind of 10,000 tickets sold. So I was like, I said to the guys who run Reminisce, I'm like, look, I think I might do a set, you know, not the Reminisce set, but just a set.
Yeah.
Because lots of people are going to be feeling that they're missed out on something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you want me to do it from your website? And they're like, nah, just do it however you want. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it from my own. And
so it's altruism.
And
you did it
huge.
for others.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really... Look, I mean, DJing as much is about my own, I guess, mentality and being able to do it because I've done it for so long. So the thought of not doing it for as much... I mean, we didn't know at the time we were going to be obviously out of action as long as we
You're
have
like,
been.
I'm going to sign up for 37 weeks.
Yes. But at the start, it was just like fun to play. Did the first one because, like I said, it was a great event that got cancelled at the last minute and then was like... okay, this went really well, you know, I should just do it next week. And I did it next week. I mean, the first week there was over 4,000 people tuned in, which was crazy. God. And then like 3 weeks in, we moved to Twitch and to YouTube as well, so that there was like some alternative spots when one of them dropped out. I set up a request thing on my Instagram, on my Linktree, so you can click on it and put requests through every week. And I can check that because, again, you know, people tend to put requests through while the show's running.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, hey, I'm kind of mixing, I'm finding music. I don't have time to go
How's
through
your balance
requests.
for requests? How much of that set is your own expression and how much is appeasing the public?
Oh, look, it's always stuff that I just want to play, and obviously you can't lose a dance floor if you don't have one, so, so that kind of helps. And I've also got, you know, like my entire record collection right behind me, which obviously is never, ever with me. I mean, I've got a lot of that stuff digitally, but... I can just turn around. I mean, last night's show, for example, I was like, I wonder what I'm going to find here. And I found this record that I was like, I haven't played that. You know, and other times I've obviously got a couple of things of vinyl that I've set up that are down.
There's a little bit of preparation that goes into it as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, as a DJ, I'd never really prepare anything because I remember years ago I was talking to a guy who was very technically very good, a guy called Anders, and DJ from Sweden, come to live in Australia. Yeah. And he was like, you should always practice live and make mistakes live because there's more pressure and you'll feel more like you want to get it done properly and you'll be more spontaneous about what you put together. So I don't really prepare sets. I like to know my music. Yeah. I'm pretty pedantic about the planning of my music, and what I mean by that is like
foldering and stuff.
Foldering, listening to everything. Yeah. Every record, if you'll have a look on my CDJ later, every track has a comment. So like
from you?
Yeah, that I write in.
Does that mean that you're on the digital side of the debate of digital versus vinyl?
Yeah, I mean, look, vinyl feels good and it's sexy and it looks good.
Yeah. But you're sexy and you look good anyway, mate. You don't need that.
Well, that's debatable. But, you know, the ability to carry so much music is amazing now. And the fact that it's at your fingertips. Yeah. And because there's so much and because I probably purchase or collect more music now than I used to because it was... You know, it was $20 to buy a 12-inch, and this is what a lot of people forget. Yeah. $20 to buy a 12-inch. Even if you're buying on Beatport, you get 10 songs for the same price. Yeah. If you're getting promos as well, you add all that in, and a lot more music goes onto my USB stick every month than would have gone on to my record collection 20 years ago.
Because you've been so active during COVID as a DJ, you've obviously had to keep your finger on the pulse musically.
Yeah, I mean, it's been good for me because I've got a lot of new music. I've listened to a lot of music. I've still purchased music. I've still gone through promos.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is I'm back to playing a live gig now, which is the first gig back has been this thing called Sky Disco.
Yes, which you're going to later today.
I am going to later. And a lot of people who've been going there have been listening to the broadcast. And when I play certain songs, I notice they resonate with everybody. So there's new songs and there's classic songs that have really kind of connected. There's a song called Testify by Davey, a Defected Records tune.
Nice.
That's got really big. All of those people who've been listening to my broadcasts when I've played my own track have been really like, wow, which is nice.
Just a Little, by the way, a fantastic tune, came out about a month ago. You've also got a new one with Sergeant Slick.
Yes, we've got a new one out next week, actually, called Love Is. So managed to get some studio time this year, which has been nice because I haven't done a lot of music production in the last probably, 3 or 4 years. A little bit, but...
Yeah. Can I say it's a banging song? Just a Little's awesome.
Thank you.
It's like it's a naughty bass line. It makes me want to be a little bit mischievous, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the vibe of the production, obviously the vocal, it's a cover of the Liberty X record. Yeah. The vocal's quite crossover, but if you take the vocal off, it's actually quite a jacking kind of house song.
Banging.
And it kind of reflects what I've always done. I've always rode that line between... I guess, the pure club thing, but also with Ministry and One Love and Vicious always had crossover things and my old radio show and stuff. So it reflects kind of what I've always done,
Sure. Do you know that I have so many questions about every single thing that you just said, but I think the most important thing on everyone's lips is hearing some music.
Some music.
Yeah, and I believe you've actually you've prepared some specific music today.
Yeah, I mean, the vibe of the show was always kind of to try and explain and connect some music to what I've done, right back from where I started. And I got into music, I got into DJing through hip-hop culture.
Hell yeah.
And through hip-hop culture...
It won Victorian DMC twice?
Twice, yes. So I used to be a bit of a turntablist back in the day. But what I am going to play is a record from... there was a movie called Beat Street, and it was a bit of a seminal hip-hop movie, and it had an amazing soundtrack that was compiled by Harry Belafonte, and amazing music. And this record is a song called Breaker's Revenge by Arthur Baker, which, if you know the movie... there's a breakdance battle...
which you and I will be partaking in.
Which we will not be partaking in. I mean, look, I don't want to get in your way. I'll stand back while you do the head spins. I'll just play the music. But, yeah, this is the tune that they are battling to. Produced by Arthur Baker, who's still making music today, I have to say. I did meet him overseas. Are you getting ready for your breakdance move? So this is Breaker's Revenge, Arthur Baker.
Mate, I feel like that guy that won Coursey in his living room.
If you haven't seen the movie, you should check the movie. And the soundtrack. And I did meet Arthur Baker. I was in Ibiza with Kaz James, Melbourne DJ, who was living over there. And we were out at a club, and he's like, oh, you should meet Arthur. I'm like, I'll meet Arthur. Who's Arthur?
I've met a few Arthurs in my time.
Exactly. So he introduces me to this guy, and I'm like, I go, Kaz, is this Arthur? This is Arthur Baker, right? And he's like, oh, yeah. I'm mates with him. He lives around the corner from me in London.
Kaz didn't know the significance.
And I was like, man, you don't understand. So I fanboyed out a little bit.
I'd love to see John Corse fanboy. John, do you think that these streams are something you're going to keep doing once the world continues to open up? Or is there a moment you go, right, enough's enough, back to the club life?
Oh, look, I think I'll do a little bit. Like, it probably won't be as much as I am now, but I think one of the things about this is kind of like the internet world has clashed with the real world, and it's kind of taken over for the last kind of 8 months. But I think the legacy is that part of it's going to remain. And I mean, you never get a chance to be directly in touch with your fan
I think
base.
it's a great thing. I truly believe that there's COVID's created a new artistic canvas for us all to adapt. And for you, for example, we all get to have an intimate experience with you DJing.
Yeah, I mean, the copyright bots would have something to say about that, which we'll get to later, I'm sure. But I mean, the process of being able to just be in your house, have your entire collection, play some tunes, and just be able to press a button and go, come on in to anybody, anywhere, all around the world.
Toilets at the end of the hall.
Yeah, I mean, I've got friends from London who've literally woken up and turned on my broadcast and sent me a message having a coffee on Saturday morning, listening to your Coursey, or Canada, France. Wow. I mean, literally all over the world, people have said hello. So, yeah, I'll definitely do it, but whether or not it becomes a regular Saturday night thing, or whether it's like a one-off thing or a shorter set or different times, I've still got to work on that. But, you know, as things change, just see what works.
I was going to say, how do you think that the whole industry is going to be affected moving forward? Do you think that, I mean, I do not believe that the industry is going to return to how it was, but I don't believe it'll be worse.
No, I think proactive people will try and work out how to use this kind of technology and this format to assist what they're doing. So it might be a party might have 1,000-person cab, they sell 1,000 tickets, and then they have a $5 online streaming ticket so that you can actually watch it if you didn't get to the event, if there's demand. Or it could be...
How good is that?
Yeah, some behind-the-scenes stuff where you can talk to people maybe before the gig on a stream, and you may not see the actual show, but you may see elements of the show. I mean, you've only got to look at those big festivals in Europe and look at how many people watch them.
Yeah.
And the broadcast on the stream at things like, I mean, I know Tomorrowland is a very commercial event, but there's 17 stages or something at Tomorrowland. Yeah. And there's all elements of music there, and the live broadcast, I think, covers about 5.
Yep.
So that's just going to extend.
Yep.
So, yeah.
It's major, mate. Now, you know you're mixing out of this. It's 2 for 1.
Am I?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Best I set something up then, hey?
Where it's at. Say where it's at. Mate, I'm just glad we've got an overhead camera to capture your wizardry.
Never seen my mixer used like that, mate. What are we listening to?
This is a guy called Hamilton Bohannon who passed away actually this year, tragically. But absolute boss of disco way back in the day. This is probably one of the records that was in my collection, in my vinyl collection when I very first started, like first year of DJing. I bought this record, first heard it at the Chevron, and it's never left my collection. Off vinyl, 1978 originally come out. I bought the album.
Oh, in the disco. This is not since disco. This is disco.
Legit.
And did you do the digital rip? Is that from your vinyl collection?
No, I don't know where I found this actually. I may have ripped it off my vinyl.
It's not illegal if it's your own vinyl.
I may have found it online somewhere and been like, I've already bought this like 3 times, so...
Yeah, you're entitled. You're allowed that one. I feel like we're getting a tour through John Coursey's musical history. What an honour it is, by the way, mate. Thank you so much. Can I say I love how much you love it? It's so obvious.
Now, the good news is it's a great disco song. The bad news for you, because you're mixing out of it, is that it was...
It's not quantized.
Correct.
You know, the good news for you, mate, is I happen to be pretty good at jogging.
Because it was, made with without drum machines, with drummers and live clappers and...
Oh, God.
So, been sampled quite a lot. I don't know if anybody knows the song Treaty by Yothu Yindi.
Banger.
But, the original remix by Gavin Campbell and all the crew, Razor Records, that remixed Treaty. They sampled this percussion loop. You can hear it in Treaty. But it's been sampled a lot, this record. Great tune.
How do you go with the unquantized mixes? Just par for the course?
Well, I had lots of vinyl experience.
Sure. Which is all about using your ears.
But also now, you notice at the start of this, I actually looped the drums so that I didn't have to worry about it kind of fluctuating too much.
Yep.
So yeah, the CDJs, we're talking about vinyl versus CDJs. One of the advantages of CDJs, obviously, is that you have the ability to loop certain sections so that if there is a vinyl, a speed fluctuation, you kind of get around it. So that helps.
Now, I've taken a punt on a few classics today. Because, look, a lot of people know you as the classics and anthems man. However, I happen to know, I have on good authority, there's a lot more to you than that.
Well, look, I love new music, so even on the Saturday show that I've been doing, always play new music. The kind of theme of the show is classics and future anthems. So I'll have some new things for you, don't worry.
That's great. I do have a question about classics, because it seems as though you have a big say in what becomes a classic. I mean, think about those iconic Ministry of Sound annual mixes. How much creative freedom did you get in track selection for that?
Well, look, I mean, the great thing about those CDs was that they actually sold quite a lot.
Oh, yeah, over 1 million units.
Yeah, but I mean, I think individually it was the second highest selling compilation in Australia behind the Triple J Top 100 CDs. So when you sell a lot of CDs, the people who you're licensing music from are like, they're happy to be on it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's worth some money.
Yes.
You sell 5,000 copies, you might get $100.
Right.
Sell 200,000 copies, the sums change quite a lot.
Gee, it's a far cry from the days of Spotify, though, isn't it?
Yeah. So you would get a lot of songs cleared. Obviously, you have to, put the requests in. But the annual, when we did the track listing, a lot of the time we kind of probably 3/4 of the songs we all agreed on, and then there was a few things that were like, I really believe this should be on there. It's a massive Melbourne record, and nobody else knew what it was.
Wow! So there was like a board decision.
Oh, when I say board, it's me and two guys at Ministry, kind of, who are both DJs as well. So it wasn't like, some huge sit down. But
no. But however, if I may, not to discredit what the sit down, but that sit down is single-handedly responsible for influencing an entire generation of what's going to be popular that year.
Yeah, I mean, the annual was a combination. The annual come out in November every year. Yeah. So the 2000, and right now, we're in November, would be the 2021 annual would come out. So it would have the biggest songs of the last 6 months and would have some things that we thought were going to be massive over the summer.
And do you think by including them in that obviously had a big play in them becoming massive over the summer?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I guess a new record that made the cut, it mean that it got the stamp of authority from a bunch of people that thought, hey, this is going to be one that's really going to go.
Yep.
But there was also songs that were around for a long time that you couldn't find. Yeah. Like one of the classic ones was Diamonds for Her by the Superman Lovers, which is an enormous Melbourne record. But in Sydney, they're not from Melbourne. They're from
it was
French.
Massive. Okay, gotcha.
But it was massive in Melbourne. Only one particular remix, which is the remix that everybody knows. And in Sydney, no one even knew it. I mean, I would empty the dance floor with that song.
Kidding?
Which, if you're from Melbourne, is like, how does that work?
I was going to say, isn't it wild that culturally... Oh, by the way, you are up. Isn't it wild that culturally scenes and sounds can be so different? There must be so many different moving parts determining on what's popular in a certain area.
Yeah, I mean, you realise that once you started doing those CDs, there was always Sydney songs that kind of made the cut that maybe weren't as big in Melbourne and vice versa. When I was mixing it,
Did you notice a difference?
Definitely, there was Melbourne songs that got on there. Midas Touch, Take That by Jurgen Papp, Street Girls by Toka Disco, and as I said, the aforementioned Superman Lovers were all records that probably wouldn't have made the cut if it wasn't for the fact that there was a Melbourne-based DJ who was mixing them. And those songs grew out of clubs like Revolver, Seven, and probably One Love were the three clubs where if a song got big in any of those clubs, it could get really big in Melbourne and not be big anywhere else.
Wow.
And there's multiple examples of songs that even to this day, I think that's a Revolver song, or that's a One Love song, or that's a, so...
I've always admired your passion for Melbourne. You do love this city, don't you?
Absolutely.
Are you a Sydney fan as well? Do you get behind the Sydney-Melbourne divide? Do you buy into it?
Apart from Melbourne exists, Sydney's okay. probably one of the best house music records ever made.
Wow.
Kings of Tomorrow, finally. Love this tune from the first moment it ever come out.
When did it come out?
About 20 years ago now. In fact, that record you just played was the first ever release on Defected Records.
That was the first ever Defected record.
And this first ever charting Defected record, and this was another one of the early Defected signings.
Wonderful. Do you remember the first time you heard it?
I do remember buying this on a double pack 12-inch vinyl in London from a second-hand record shop, actually, because you couldn't find the thing in a new record shop at the time.
Time marches on, never ending. Time keeps its own time. Here we stand at beginning, and in goes passing us by. And I can't dream for us all. I hope I'm in a better state when here and now crumbles and falls.
Had you written a comment on this?
It'll come up in a sec.
Great. We'll get a shot. I'll let you know. Oh, here we go. That's all right. We'll get it off here. Because in the comments, you're essentially writing to yourself. So you could use your own language.
I mean, this one I kind of already knew how it goes by the time there was a digital version of it. But new music, when we play something new, I'll show you the comment later on. You can have a look with the other camera and get a vibe.
I now have no fear of my fears and no more tears to cry. Tomorrow means nothing at all if we don't hear the line when today places its call. And morning won't never be the same. Now I won't make the same mistake. Time and time again. Time and time again. Time and time again. Time and time again. Time and time again.
What a movement.
Nothing like some good air piano, I say.
And also, I just love how stripped back it is. Like, they only appear every now and then.
Finally I meet you. You don't know what I've been through. Waiting and wondering about you. I had a dream my trip would end up at you. And now I know paradise. Time marches on, never ending. Time keeps its own time.
You mentioned earlier that you straddle the border of the club, the underground, and the commercial, the vocal, the accessible. This seems like a pretty good example of that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're a totally underground, you know, kind of head-nodding, chin-stroking techno fan, this might sound like Kylie Minogue to you.
Sure.
But if you're a Kylie Minogue fan, this sounds like underground chin-stroking techno. So everywhere's got their, you know, semblance of where one person's underground record is somebody else's overground record. But this is a record that is undeniably respected by everywhere, but also got a beautiful vocal. It's catchy, but it's not like...
It's not in your face hooky.
Yeah.
It's
not like COVID catchy that we don't want. It's like a good catchy.
Do you have a preference?
Wondering about you. I had a dream my trip would end up at you. And now I know paradise. So tell me, how do you do? Finally
What I mean was, do you have a preference of the underground or the accessible? Or is it a genuine love of the middle ground?
It's just, there's amazing underground records that I love.
Yeah.
There's amazing pop records that I think are amazing.
Yep.
So I'm just not stuck in one lane. I'm not stuck in one genre.
Yep.
I'm not stuck in one era.
You don't feel any pressure to be a John Course that people want you to be? Because
Well-
everybody has such a, there's, it's not an expectation, but there's a, oh, John Course, classic.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in recent years that classic thing has come through because something like Reminisce is so big. You get 10,000 people go there and I play 4 hours of classic house music. So there's that connection. But at the same time, if I go and play a club like 161, you know, I might play a record like this in the middle of my set, but it's going to be a lot of new music as well. And I run a record label that signs new music.
Vicious, by the way, one of the most successful record labels in the country, and I believe probably very responsible in scouting the next big thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to play a couple of records from the label that have been kind of what I would say seminal records for not only the label, but for me personally, but also for the whole club scene in general from Australia, because when we have big records that resonate internationally, it really does change the mentality of that kid who's a producer in the suburbs, who hears Dom Dolla win an aria, but also sees Dom Dolla on the top of the Beatport chart.
Yeah.
It's a different mentality when you start to see, you know, somebody from your backyard making it internationally. It means that your horizons go through the roof.
Oh, that's really inspiring.
And I think that's a really significant factor about these waves of new music that's happening with Dom Dolla, Torrent Foot, Stace Cadet and KLP.
Banger.
And even if you don't like that style of house music and you like tougher stuff, the success of Timmy Trumpet and Will Sparks, even though they get a lot of hate because they make a style of music that some purists don't like.
Oh, mate, if you're popular, you're going to get hate, we were discussing earlier.
And the fact that they've reached so far and become so big within their own scene, even though it's a different scene to this sort of music, again, is pretty inspiring in its own way. So
you got 35 seconds.
I'm going to play this one from the start. And
here we go.
Have a little explanation of why.
Oh, from the start, I love it. You know, this is a Coburg up late first.
So that's Kings of Tomorrow. Finally, amazing record on Defected. But this next tune was the first record that we ever heard on our own label. Myself and Andy Van, my business partner in Vicious, we were in London at a warehouse party. First ever overseas trip together. We were standing...
How long ago?
1995.
Oh, wow.
And first time we'd ever been overseas. And we're standing in this warehouse rave, actually, under these arches in King's Cross in London. And this come on, and this was a record that we actually released from a guy in Melbourne called David Walker. An artist called Ground Level. It was the first ever Vicious record to chart in the UK dance charts and the first ever Vicious record to chart on the UK pop chart. It peaked at about 54, and the first time I ever heard one of our records somewhere else in the world. So It was an amazing experience. I remember me and Andy were standing in a queue to get to the bar, and we were like, this is our tune. And we didn't even make it. David did, but...
You probably ordered a couple more drinks at the bar, didn't you?
But it's such a good record, and called Dreams of Heaven by Ground Level. Release number 7 on Vicious.
Loves his air piano.
And this is around 1994, 95, so very early in the Australian kind of label clubbing scene, you know.
This would have been a very new sound.
Very new, yeah.
Yeah. Is that why you signed it?
We just liked it. We signed a project with another song before this called God Intended. It's a bit more techno, but this is just beautiful, melodic, kind of... I mean, I guess this was regarded as kind of a techno record at the time.
Yeah, well, remember, like, Black Sabbath was heavy metal. Like, things always change, you know?
And the thing is, music wasn't genrefied as hard as it is now because that house music tree has got so big that there's so many branches, whereas back here there was kind of like this house music tree just starting to grow,
Just a four to the floor kick drum. Do you think genres are important?
I mean, you got to be able to understand where music fits, but at the same time, if you get too stuck down on it, you close your mind to great music. So
Sure. I think what I like about genres is it gives us an idea of boundaries so then we can break them. What inspired the label? As a young buck, John Course and Andy Van.
well, we were getting into house music when it first broke, and we were.
Had it broken in Australia?
Yeah, I mean, we started DJing in kind of 85, 86, and the first real summer, what they call the European English Summer of Love, was 88. And that's when a bunch of English DJs basically went to Ibiza and discovered this music and brought it back to London.
Was that Manchester? Is that a similar time?
No, that was
Prior to that?
definitely after.
Oh, after, okay. Yep.
Sorry,
Before.
it was before the whole Manchester thing happened, yeah.
Sure.
So, Paul Oakenfold, Danny Rampling, they and a group of their friends went to Ibiza in 1988 and were like, "You got to hear this music," and they brought it back to London. And around that time, I guess the music that was starting to break through in 88, 89 was underground house music. And then when they kind of started breaking it into the UK, that's when all these things like S Express and Yaz, The Only Way Is Up, and Mars, Pump Up the Volume, and all this kind of stuff really started to break through. And during that time, myself and Andy were DJing in Frankston, where we used to live. And we started DJing in Melbourne at Chase's and Chevron, and a place called the Drinkers Club, actually, which turned eventually into Boutique. I used to play there on a Tuesday. That was my first gig up in Melbourne in late 1987, early 88.
When you say up in Melbourne, is that because back then Frankston wasn't considered Melbourne?
I'm not sure it is now. I can take the piss out of Frankston because I'm from there, so it's okay. But yeah, and then the house thing started to break through, and there was clubs like Razor, and there was certainly a bunch of DJs that were playing house music, including myself and Andy, and guys like Paul Seedley, John Portelli. I mean, a whole bunch of guys were into it, but there was also a bunch of kind of DJs from Melbourne that didn't really get it and were still in the Euro disco kind of period. So it was an interesting. Times were kind of changing, and some of the old school Melbourne guys weren't really getting onto it, but a lot of the younger guys were just like, bring it on. And we had a
You were part of that new movement.
Yeah, I mean, we were out of town, so we didn't have any inner city pressures. We just did our thing down in Frankston, come up and played records twice a week.
Out on the farm in Frankston.
And we built a little studio there and started making music and playing around. And then we kind of just wanted an outlet to put it out. So we figured, let's just do our own thing, which we did. We got involved with a friend of ours called Colin Daniels, who was a DJ then, but he was also working at MDS Records, which was a big distribution outlet underneath Mushroom Distribution Services. So we did the label through Mushroom, started pressing vinyl through them, and yeah, it just grew from there. Really a hobby that grew into a business. Very, very slowly, I might add.
You sustained that business now for almost 30 years.
Yeah, 2022 is our 30th year, so we're 28.
Happy birthday.
We're 28 at the moment. This next record just takes me back to Cuba, an amazing venue on the corner of Chapel and Toorak Road.
You'd have some pretty good, maybe some hazy memories there, John.
I mean, the great thing about Cuba, and Melbourne people will definitely remember, was that when it opened, it was 7 nights a week till 7 in the morning every single night.
Does that mean people were smashing it until 7 on a Wednesday? Or were they just open? Was it a show of face, or...?
Initially, there was nobody there any night, including Friday and Saturday. I mean,
You're just in the corner with Andy Van. I'm telling you, it's going to be a great label, man.
Oh, no, not so much the late. I'm talking about the Club Cuba.
I know.
Yeah, we did I did the opening Friday night, and there was like 5 people there. But they had this mentality that if you kind of build it, they will come. So they really stuck to the hospitality sector. Let everybody know we're always open afterwards when your restaurant shuts, when your bar shuts. Come and have a drink with us. And I think that's why Q-Bar really stood up, but they also had a great music policy. And
What was that policy?
it was just play good club music, you know. Don't be overtly commercial. Don't be... On certain nights, it was very underground as well. The Sunday night got a reputation as a very good underground, progressive kind of house night.
Right.
And they were kind of like, just make the music good. The people will come, we'll get a late vibe. And within 6 months, it was absolutely hammering on a Friday and Saturday. And the other nights followed on. Thursdays were big, Sundays were big. And then eventually even Monday, Tuesday, you know, there was always like, you could go there, there'd be 100 people hanging out, listening to some music, go there for a drink if you got somebody in town.
Yep.
It was great.
What nights were you playing?
I used to do guest spots on a Thursday. I was a resident Friday.
Yep.
And it was around this period that some of this Italo kind of house stuff really blew up. And I always think of this record reminds me of that club.
So what you're saying is my 2 selections so far have been within the John Course ballpark? I gotta say, mate, I'm having a great time with you. Thank you so much. How does it feel to be performing again, John?
Well, it's good. It's better when your USB loads.
Oh,
which this
what's
one
going on? What's going on,
currently
mate?
isn't loading, so we'll see how we go.
Do you want to maybe turn it off and on again? I heard on the IT crowd that's a great solution. We're back. I love that crude hi-hat. That was really cool. I guess you learn a thing or two in 30 years. What are we listening to, John?
Well, it was 20 years ago that Madison Avenue made Don't Call Me Baby last year, early this year. So we got a whole bunch of remixes done, and this is the Mousse remix. You can see my comments on this one if you want to have a look at the... I've got the key, and I've written Great Groove remix with full vocal and great piano line.
That's awesome.
Which kind of is exactly what it is.
Not wrong. Not wrong, John. Mousse T can do no wrong as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a real resurgence as well.
Yep.
And this remix is fantastic. And again, talking about records that inspire, I mean, this record went to #1 in the UK, you know, like, it won Record of the Year at the ARIAs and it beat Powderfinger. And at the time, you know, in 2000, it was like, we're such a rock-led country.
Yeah. About time. Bernie'd had his time, hadn't he?
Oh, look, don't get me wrong, I quite like Powderfinger, but the fact that this record won that ARIA award was like really a moment for us, you know? But it's just an undeniably great house record, great pop record, and I'm lucky to say it was made by one of my very best mates, so hats off to you, Andy and Shane. You smashed it with this one.
Now, when you said you got remixes done, how did that go about? Or remixes just were done?
So obviously Vicious owns the copyright to these records, so we started making some calls and getting in touch with some people, and it's such a well-known record because it was so big in Europe. We got in touch with Mousse T. We said, would you be interested in doing a new mix of it?
Oh, that's great.
As part of the 20th anniversary release. So there was new mixes done by Mousse T and also, ironically, by techno DJ Patrick Topping.
Oh, wow. And he moves into tech house territory as well.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick used to play the original in his sets, and a friend of mine was friends with him, and he said, you know, Patrick might be up for doing a remix of this. He knows this record, and I was like, that'd be awesome, you know. So through him, we got in touch with Patrick, and he was like, yeah, man, I love the record. I'd love to do it. And,
you know, you can play it unironically. It's such a good pop track. You can play it in a house set unironically.
And the great thing was he also, with the bushfires that happened, both Patrick and Madison Avenue and Vicious agreed that from the Patrick Topping remix, all of the profit will be donated to the bushfire appeal.
Wow.
And he agreed on that internationally, which was really awesome.
Wow.
So it's got a great message, but it's a great remix. It's good. A feel-good factor.
You're doing God's work over here. Nothing vicious about you. You're a teddy bear, John.
It's time you knew I'm not your baby. I belong to me, so don't call me baby, baby. Don't call me baby, baby. Don't call me baby, baby. Don't call me baby, baby.
Basically unchanged bass line. That's how good it is. Reading John's note here is hot new club mix with original vocal hooks. Once again, we'll see if you're not wrong. It's one of my favourite mixes on the show ever, just then. Two things. Firstly, John, because we haven't got long left, just play it out. You're going to take over the
No
reins
problem.
here. Secondly, what have we got? What's going on?
This is LOUIE, VEGA and the Martinez brothers. Come out late actually last year.
When we still had dance floors.
Yeah. And it had a resurgence also as a re-release kind of March, April.
John Course has taken us home today. If you want to listen to any of the tracks today without our voices tarnishing the recording, we've got a Spotify playlist, the official Coburg Up Late John Course Spotify playlist. John, can I ask you to contribute 5 tracks in addition?
You got something dirty.
My man.
Uptown on Broadway, walk it out like a runway. Gotta get it what they all say. Baby wanna get it what they all say. West side girls love me, east side girls love me, down south girls trust me. You got something lovely. Oh yeah, I see it. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah, 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 oh yeah.
There's that backspin.
The stacks of music that's sampling kind of old vocals at the moment, old house classics, and reworking them. This is one of them. It's the vocals from I Wish I Didn't Miss You, absolutely amazing record. And this is LUDO LACOSTE, When You Were Down is the name of it. Kind of new tech house jacking production, but an old vocal, so it mashes new and old, which is kind of a bit like me.
Well, house music seems to constantly pay homage to itself, doesn't it? Yeah.
Most of the time in a good way, sometimes in a horrific way, but yeah, it always does throw back a lot, yeah.
Now, before we finish up, John, is there what's next for you, and what's next for Vicious?
We've got a big year planned next year. Andy Van, who was behind both Vandalism and Madison Avenue, has a new project called Super Disco Club, which there's a bootleg floating around now. But that whole project will see the light of day next year.
Is that a homage to the Super Disco Club at Prince?
Nothing to do with it.
Oh, wow. You didn't think to tap him on the shoulder?
I did tap him on the shoulder. I said, you better give Frank Catella a call, which he did. And Frank was like, no problem, you want to call your project that? It's all cool. So that's kind of like a disco-y house thing that he's got a whole bunch of tracks. So that's a pretty exciting project. I've got some more music coming. I'm going to finish with my new track with Sergeant Slick after this. And then, yeah, you know, we got some new things coming. Flash from Queensland, Steve Hart from Adelaide, been working with us for ages. Mind Electric lives in Perth, has done a whole bunch of stuff for years.
Wow.
And of course, Sergeant Slick's got new music coming, not only this track with me, but a whole bunch of other stuff. So, yeah, we head into 2021 with an open mind and dance floors hopefully in front of us instead of on a TV.
Are you optimistic, John?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I think it's going to be a little tough for clubs because the whole dance floor thing is the complete opposite of social distancing. But we'll get there, you know, and when we do, I think the vibe will be pretty positive and people will be busting to have a dance, and they already are. Even when you do an event and there's booths, they're all dancing in the booth, and so... Yeah, I think the whole scene will be back stronger and better than ever, really.
You heard it here from the JC himself. What would JC do? He'd be optimistic about next year. Hang in there, everybody. We'll be back on that dance floor soon.
So this is a new tune. We made it early in the year, actually. I played it on my broadcast very, very, very early, like in May or something.
The teaser.
A little test version. We tweaked it a little bit. Comes out this week, actually, on Spotify. It's on Beatport. It's called Love Is. Me and Sergeant Slick, just a little kind of club jam that we liked. Bit of a disco-y 80s vibe with the keys.
Almost
and,
a filter house almost there.
That is what you want. That is what you need. That is what you want. That is what you need. That is what you want. That is what you need. That is what you want. That is what you need. That is what you want. That is what you need. That is what you want. That is what you need. That is what you want. That is what you need. That is what you want. That is what you need.
And a nice positive message to end the show with. Love is what you want, love is what you need.
Mate, if it wasn't COVID, I'd be hugging the hell out of you right now, mate. Thank you for your positivity and your talents and your time today. Sergeant Slick knows his way around. What are you producing in, by the way?
He runs Ableton, I run Ableton. Yeah, he's definitely got it down nailed. Like, he's been doing it a long time, and his records this year, obviously he did the cover version of Gimme Gimme Gimme, which was massive. He's got his own The Night the Lights Went Out track, which came out about a month ago.
He's a bit of an edit maestro as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got the edits that he does. He's also got a project called La Trick.
With Ivan Goff?
Yeah, so that's a different project again. And yeah, proper studio bod, absolute gentleman of a guy, been working with us for, well, 25 years. We won an ARIA with White Treble Black Bass way back in 1998. So, yeah, long-time servant of the studio.
And it's been a great relationship blossoming ever since.
Yeah, you know, and we really, over time, you get to know what people are like, and you want to work with people that, I mean, lots of people can make great music, but you want to actually work with people that you like what they're doing, you're helping them, they're helping you. We don't really have a lot of space for massive egos at our label. So if you think you're amazing and no one else does, don't come and see us.
That is what you want. That is what you need. That is what you want. That is what you need.
For the record, I believe a lot of other people think you're pretty amazing, John.
That is what you want. That is what you need.
long did it take for this one to come out in terms of actual production?
We were just playing around with it. Originally, it started off as a very slow thing. And,
A bit more disco-y?
yeah, like it was super, super slow. And we just had a session in the studio. And the nuts and bolts of it come around actually pretty quickly. But the polishing and the arrangement was like a little bit longer. But the core idea was probably a day in the studio just playing with ideas. And we're like, hey, that works. Oh, this vocal could work. Oh, and then obviously shaping it out a bit more was the time thing. But I think a lot of the time good ideas in the studio, people, they sit on them and they work them and they work them and they work them and they work them. And
Think that could be counterintuitive sometimes?
yeah, probably the first version was maybe not the first version, but
Third, golden 3.
yeah, if the core idea is good, you kind of know pretty quickly, and you can build everything around it. But if you get that core idea right, and this is what I say to people when we get demos as to the label, it's like, you know, you can get engineers in to help you make it sound amazing. You can get masterers in, you can get all those people in, you can even get another producer to help you tweak it. But if the core idea is amazing, we're going to be interested in signing that record. If you can come up with core ideas, so with Ableton and everybody can create at home, that's the way to get it started, you know.
It's true. For me, dance has always been about ideas. Oh, there it is.
I know, I've tricked you with that extra bit on the end there, haven't I?
I was like, oh, we've got at least some chit-chat going on at the
That's
end.
because there's an edit on the end of that. That's the original studio version. So I tricked you there, sorry.
Thanks for coming over and tricking me.
No worries, thanks for having me, and all the best. I looked at the other legends that are on this show, and there's some really cracking DJs on it. Luke McD and Janet, you're doing another one on Janet, I think, yeah?
She's coming in about 1 hour.
Yeah, like, you know, so there's some great Melbourne DJs that have been on it, and pleasure to be on here, so thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Remember, whatever you do, may you do it with passion. And may we all truly endeavour to be kind to each other, the world around us, and ourselves. I've been DJ Be Kind to Other People with the God John Course. Good night.